Coming up, estate plans, why it's so important to have them and to review them on a regular basis. This is Regions Wealth Insights. This can be a difficult topic to address, but it's one that's crucial for your family. Estate planning, what happens to what you've earned after you pass away. Barbara Screven is a Vice President and Estate and Trust Planning Specialist with Regions Private Wealth Management. She joins us today with some insights. Barbara, thank you for coming by.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy.
First, is there a misperception, perhaps among younger generations, that they don't need to have an estate plan right now?
Yes, oftentimes there is a misconception, mainly because when you're young, you don't necessarily have a lot of assets, but it's important that anybody that's an adult have at least a basic will. As time evolves and you marry, have children, you need to think about an estate plan to make sure that you have provisions for your spouse, for any minor children, and if something should happen to both you and your spouse, you want to make sure that your will is there to provide for guardians for your minor children.
I suppose as time moves on as well, it's not just about simply having a will or having an estate plan, but making sure it's reviewed and updated from time to time, correct?
That is definitely correct. You want to constantly make sure that your will is up to date with any changes that are going on in your life or outside your life.
What are some examples of those changes?
Well, one of the major changes that just constantly takes place, it deals with your family structure. You can have deaths, marriages, divorces, children that are being born, and all of those things will affect your estate plan.
Outside of the family structure, are there other things, legal matters, business matters that might cause you to review the plan?
Sure, all those things can affect your plan. Federal and state tax laws can definitely affect your estate plan, and one plan that you've done maybe many years ago under certain sets of laws can evolve into something you totally don't recognize later at your death if the laws have changed significantly, which they are apt to do.
In this case, we should probably point out here that estate planning really is not just about wills, like you mentioned. There's a lot of other factors that also need to be considered and reviewed. Is that right?
That is correct. There are lots of other factors, and it depends on where you are in your life and what type of assets you own. You need to consider all your assets, such as IRAs, retirement plans, investments, bank accounts, insurance policies, and real estate, among other things.
So to be clear then, you're saying certain assets are not guided by your will in particular, is that right?
That's correct. Certain assets may not be guided by your will, especially those assets that have beneficiary designation forms with the assets. And those particular assets, the beneficiary that you designate will receive your assets. And unless you've designated your estate as the beneficiary, then those assets are going to pass outside your will to the designated beneficiary.
And that speaks to the importance of making sure that beneficiary reflects your current wishes, right?
That is exactly right. Again, as I said, as people pass away, other people are born, or divorces, marriages, all those things are factors in making sure that you review your beneficiary designation forms.
You mentioned bank accounts earlier. How exactly are those guided, the assets in those accounts, when the account holder passes away?
Well, bank accounts are guided by the way the account is titled. So if your account is titled solely in your own name, the assets in the bank account are going to pass through your estate. If you titled your account, say, joint with right of survivorship, then the assets will pass to the joint owner at the time of your death.
How often do you suggest that people review their estate plans?
Well, we think it's important that you review your estate plan on a regular basis, at least every 5 years. But if you have a major change in your life or there's a major change in the laws, then we suggest that you do it sooner.
Another issue, and it can be difficult to have these conversations, but it's bringing younger generations into the planning process. How do you suggest that people work with their children and work with others to make sure that they're aware of their current estate plans?
Well, this can be a very difficult topic to bring up among the different generations, but we think it's important that this topic be brought up so that it can allow everybody to understand how the estate plan will work. The younger generations need to know how those assets are going to be passed on so that they can also work on their own estate plan, and it allows them to understand the whole thought process of the estate plan while the person who's creating this plan is still alive.
It can seem a little bit overwhelming, but I suppose the bottom line here is that there is help available for people who need to consider all these factors.
Definitely, there is help available. At Regions Private Wealth Management, we have a whole group of professionals that are there to help advise and review your estate plan with you and work with your other trusted advisors in making sure that your estate plan is in good order, and also offer new strategies to help ensure that your estate plan is as strong as it can be.
All right. Barbara Screven of Regions Private Wealth Management, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching. We have more information online, including a checklist to help you determine where there may be some gaps in your own estate planning. Just go to regions.com/wealth and look for the Estate Planning tab. Also, if you'd like to speak further with a Regions expert, give us a call at 1-800-826-6933. We'll see you here soon for another edition of Regions Wealth Insights.